a sales conversation typically runs through 4 phases. I know this can sound now a little bit weird, yeah? But there is a clear structure behind the sales process. Before I learned that, I did my sales somehow, yeah? That's the honest truth. I was talking a little bit, gathering some information, then ask some questions, and then at a certain stage, I made the sale or I didn't sell. But there is a clear structured process behind it. I will show you now the process and will explain every step, what you need to do in these steps to be successful. And for that, let me draw here a circle. Please imagine that this is a circle. And I split this circle up into 4 phases. And looking into the phase number 1, which is the introduction phase. Like getting into it in the conversation, introducing yourself, like what we mentioned before, be friendly, be good. It's like the first 1 to 2 minutes, probably 3 minutes, where you actually go in, you introduce yourself, you talk about the purpose of the call today, and you line up a plan. And ideally, you connect to the prospect. In that phase, you spend around 10% of your time. When you are warm, both of you, when you got introduced to each other, when you know the purpose, when you know the plan, you go into the most important phase. And this is phase number 2. And this phase is actually called the discovery phase. And I make that a little bit bigger for you. It's called the discovery phase. The first phase I typically call the introduction. And the second phase is the discovery phase. Here you spend 70, 80% of your whole time in. This is most important. What do you do in there? You ask questions. You want to understand the challenges of your prospect. What do they really want today? And then map it how you can help them. So in the discovery phase, it's all about them. A great way, for example, to start the discovery phase is, how have you been so successful until now? I know you have raised a Series B, a Series C. I'm really impressed by that. Tell me a little bit, how have you done that? What were your biggest milestones here? And then people talk. And this is great because obviously you want to get to know this other person, and you get to know this other person when you listen carefully. This is also one thing. In this phase, you listen carefully. You actively listen what the person says. I recommend to you taking definitely notes on whatever notebook you want. You can use it digitally or like a traditional notebook. Take some notes because you will need these notes also in the further phases. You don't talk here about your product. You don't introduce your service. You don't say what you do. You potentially say in a first sentence what you do, but really be short and be conscious. It's only about them. What are your biggest problems? What are your biggest challenges? Where do you want to go towards with your organization? What is challenging for you in sales right now if you're selling like a sales solution? How does your sales numbers look like? How do you do the onboarding today? How do you train your team? How do you make sure you follow a certain process? All of this happens in the discovery phase number 2. Only then, if you know the 3 most important items, why this potential buyer would like to buy, then you move to the next phase. So you actually want to understand what's their buying reason number 1, number 2, and number 3. And this could be like, hey, I want to get more revenue, I want to save costs, I want to get more time with my beloved girlfriend or with my beloved wife, with my kids, whatever. It can be personal motivators, it can be also company-related motivators. Your job in this phase is to figure out what's really driving your potential buyer. What is the so-called decision criteria they are doing here? You want to know why they would buy a service like yours, but they don't even know the service yet. You have never introduced the service. You just want to gather the problems, the current situation, seeing where they are right now, where they are today. if you have that, you actually go into phase 3, which we call the solution mapping phase. Some call them also the demand consolidation phase. So there are different namings for that, but solution mapping sounds like a good way. Why? Travel with your potential buyer into the future. Paint a clear picture how their lives will be different with a solution like yours. Make out of your general solution which you are selling, whatever this is, if it's an OCR scanner, if it's a video streaming service, if it's a platform for sales playbooks, in this phase, it gets customized for their specific needs which you figured out in the discovery phase. They get exactly the solution which can solve their problem. Obviously, there is only a sale if there is a demand and a need for it. You cannot sell something if there is not a need for it, neither if you cannot solve their problems. That must be clear. That's the number one rule at the very beginning. You travel really detailed with your potential buyer into the future. With the Kickscale's Playbooks platform, you will have more time with your loved ones because the team will learn automatically, will get onboarded. They will do better sales conversations, so your revenue will increase and your stress level will go down. Do you want that? Ask here also always question. Important as well, always, and I will talk in the different phases more about that, to repeat what the customer was saying. Because it's communication, right? I don't know what you guys think now out there, so I would have to ask. And asking you, what do you think? Or repeating, I heard that you said that and that. This happens mainly in the solution mapping phase. You paint a clear picture of what the prospect will get. To go then to phase number 4, which is really important obviously too, is offer and closing. So in this phase, you provide the offer. With Kickscale, you get a sales playbook platforms where all your best processes are in there. You get access to playbooks and processes from other successful teams, and you can learn and educate your team all over time. All of that you get for only $49 per user per month. In addition, you will also get a check-in format where people can ask questions and where they can build their playbooks. When do you want to start? Getting into that. Make sure your offer is concise. With the offer, you actually do nothing else than getting that solution mapping into a concrete offer. This is what you get. When do we want to start? These are the 4 phases. Obviously here, in every phase, there are some challenges, which I will talk in the next videos about. When you consider these phases, and again, just to highlight that once more, you spend actually here roughly 5% in this phase. You spend here ideally 70%, and then you spend here, like again, depending on how this will be, 15 to 20% even, and then you have like kinda 5 to 10% on that offer and closing. So the majority of your time is spent in the discovery phase because you want to understand what your potential buyer really wants. And trust me, this will differentiate you from 90% of all sellers. I, for example, went into sales conversations sometimes, especially when I was very young in my career, and say, yeah, sure, what can I do? Yeah, sure, I give you a half an hour presentation. I even didn't know what they were interested in. They just say, yeah, come to us and present a little bit what you do. Not saying that this is wrong, but this is not a typical sales conversation. This is then really educating the customer what we do and so on and so forth. A great sales conversation is you know a lot more about your potential buyer after the conversation than before. And you ideally know the 3 main drivers why they want to exchange their video player, why they want to exchange their OCR scanning solution, why they need a sales playbook because they are not selling enough or they are not growing fast enough, or they have challenges onboarding team members, and so on and so forth. And that's what you figure out here. Let's jump into the details of each phase.